again, everybody, and welcome to another Inside Lowell podcast. I am your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you from the WellPoint Studios here in downtown Lowell. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. And we thank our friends at WellPoint for helping to make this podcast possible and all of our Inside Lowell podcasts, including the ones where I forget to hit the record button. Inside joke there. I want to thank the rest of our podcast sponsors as well. Washington Savings Bank. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, from affordable to luxurious apartments for all. Boston North Company, business solutions for restaurant and retail. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and comfort to Greater Lowell since 1925. Francis E. Prevention Insurance, the agency you can count on for over 41 years. And by the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. And with that, I want to bring in my special guest for this podcast. She's kind of a familiar face if you follow stand-up comedy and you're familiar with the local comedy scene. She's performed all over the country. I'm going to read this resume again with the record button rolling this time, Janelle. She's performed and opened with the likes of Jay Leno, Arsenio Hall, Tiffany Haddish, Jeffrey Ross, Jay Mohr, anyone who's anyone in comedy. She's probably crossed paths with. Regular commentator on the SiriusXM Raw Dog comedy show. Performed at the iconic Wilbur Theater in Boston, as well as a bunch of comedy festivals across the country: Vegas, Atlanta, Rhode Island, Vermont, North Carolina, Alaska. Have you memorized all these, by the way? No? And she's also the first and only comedian to sign an overall licensing deal with Bumble, where she's written, created, performed, and filmed several spots, which launched across their social media platforms to great success. But the best part is, and the reason we're talking to her, is she's a Chelmsford High graduate, class of 2007, and now a Downtown Lowell resident. Janelle Draper, welcome to the WellPoint Studio.
Thank you, Teddy. Thanks. Yeah.
Good to have you here. This is kind of like we crossed paths, literally walked across each other in downtown. I interrupted one of your phone calls.
It's okay.
To give you my business card.
I was so happy you did. I was at Life Alive. Shout out Life Alive. I love to go there and write. And crossing, your family's restaurant, Athenian Corner, and you're just like, hold on. And I'm like, okay. And they give me your card, and it was just lovely, reminded me that we had met, or not in person, it was on the phone, right?
We did a radio interview on the phone,
for the Wilbur show, which was a couple years ago, and that made my day. It was so nice. That's what I love about Lowell, is like, there's a lot to like about Lowell. It's just bumping into people on the street and having that small town community feel, but there's still a ton to do, a lot of entertainment and a lot of cool spots to hang and work at, and just that energy, like the city energy I like.
Yeah, you recently moved. Well, I should say, how long ago did you move to downtown Lowell?
Yeah, so trying to think, like basically just October. So what's it been, not even a whole year yet. Because I'm still like living in LA. So I have an apartment in LA and then a place here that's mostly my boyfriend's place. So I just kind of go back and forth, but I love when I spend half my time here and half my time in LA. So Lowell area, LA, and then LA, Los Angeles.
Two LAs. But I mean, it's funny. When I first interviewed her, I thought, I'm interviewing this, this young, up and coming performer who's getting her big break at the Wilbur. And then I realized, she's already like arrived on the comedy scene. You started with the Jay Leno show, and you lived in New York, lived in Los Angeles. So how does LA Lowell area compare with like LA, Los Angeles, and NY? Must be the same.
It's basically exactly the same. There's a lot less kale smoothies, not as much cannabis cannabis dispensaries on the street. No, it's pretty cool. I will say I did feel like LA followed me here when I came back on my recent trips, because they filmed the spin-off of Walking Dead, Dead City, literally right in our apartment building. So they used our apartment, our loft, as a green room. So we had, cast, crew, showrunner, director of Dead City, which airs on AMC networks, which ironically is where I worked when I lived in New York for 8 years. So it's all full circle. So I just feel like a lot of synchronicity and like serendipities happening when I'm here. And so I really appreciate it. And the Folk Fest felt very fun and incredible and really like just such a treat. So I actually feel like of all the cities in Mass, this feels like a really vibrant one that has a ton of, activity and a ton of promise. So
what have you called it? The most city of
the suburbs. Yeah.
I like it. We're gonna coin that. With the City of Lowell's promotional post.
Exactly. You can get rid of there's a lot to like. There's,
the most city of all the suburbs. Did they give you a cameo in the Grateful Dead show? No?
I wish. Yeah, no, it was they had already had all of their like extras and everything, and they were all dressed up as the people surviving the apocalypse for the Walking Dead. So, and it was like the day that it was like 96 degrees and they're head to toe and like army gear, and I'm like, I'm kind of glad I missed that. They were just like hanging around in 5 hours outside for that, so I was just glad to be inside there was like cast chairs. Like I was with like Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who plays Negan on the show, and then Lauren Cohan, who plays Maggie. If you're a Walking Dead fan, you'll know who those people are, but it was really cool. It was like a nice day. Yeah.
Did they clean up after themselves?
Yes, they
left the apartment
did.
And clean? Okay.
They cleaned. No one took a shit. No, I'm just kidding.
You also mentioned the folk festival. I ran into you and your boyfriend. I think all 3 days. You took the folk festival seriously, much so that your boyfriend's family came like from other parts of the country, right?
They came in from Connecticut, Rhode Island. They flew in from North Carolina, Virginia. We went all out, and we saw you guys were slamming. You guys were so busy and popping at Athenian. I love it. We went there late night and they're like, you guys, the waitress was like, yeah, we ran out of calamari, ran out of eel. We're like, that makes sense. That makes sense. But no, we had so much fun. I mean, how can you not enjoy it? Like, I really enjoyed like the Afro Dominicano group. There was like the 3 Irish sisters from Donegal, where my grandmother was from originally in Ireland. So it was such a treat. Because it's been like over a decade. I think the last time I went to Folk Fest, I was like some dumb 21-year-old like bopping on, probably just at Smokehouse the whole time. Just, So now I can actually appreciate it as like a full-fledged adult and be like, wow, there's so much culture and food and history.
You've grown up, Janelle.
I really have. I mean, you'll still find me doing body shots at Smokehouse, but...
Okay. I'd be worried if you did. So let's talk a little bit about your career and where you've been and where you're going. When did you realize that, hey, I'm funny? I can make a living out of it.
Oh, okay. Well, my dad he pushed me to do it. I would just always be making him laugh since I was like really little, and my mom too. I think it was something crazy. Like we're moving my brother into college. He went to Stonehill where I went, and I'm a few years older, so we're moving him into the dorm. His roommate was named like Terry Rose. And I looked to my dad, and we're moving into my brother's stuff, and I go, wouldn't it be so funny if his roommate, this random stranger, is just laying there like almost like naked with nothing but roses on him and like a rose in his, and my dad just started laughing. He's like, you're ridiculous. Like, I was just like, yeah, I have these visions of the most absurd. I think we talked about it when I met you and your wife. Like, I just go to these dark places, like, but I try to do it in like a bubbly, smiley way, because I am an optimistic, not dark person, but I do have a sort of sick sense of humor, and I just like to make my dad laugh, who has a similar sense of humor, and he's like, you'd really be good at stand-up, because he was a big fan of Chelsea Handler when she first had her show, Chelsea Lately, and then I had been living in LA as an NBC page on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and it was sort of like a glorified intern job. Like, it was like just kind of being a gopher, getting coffee, helping Jay with guests and things. And then my dad goes, you should take a stand-up class, when I was in LA. And I go, really? I took a class, hooked. I was like, that vision of, you're on stage, and like I saw sort of like a crystal clear vision. I could feel this like energy. I know it sounds really woo woo, like really like bizarre, like, or Oprah calls it flow energy. I was like, oh, this is what I meant to do. And it just clicked.
So you took a stand-up class.
Yeah.
So there's actually some level of skill or like structure to it, right?
Totally.
If you want to be able to go on stage and entertain people for however long your set is, right?
Yeah, I recommend it to anyone that's open to it. Like, you would be great in a class like this. Like, there's, classes all over, but this one particular one I took, it's just so incredible, and it's just built this great community of really supportive people, and you are kind of forced to dig deep and take out some honest, like maybe dark, not so attractive thoughts, but with love and support and encouragement that like you can go to those places and then it will feel both cathartic and connecting and great for the people that listen and are like relating to you and laughing. So it really forces you to kind of connect to that deeper purpose of why you're doing it. And then with the backing of everyone supporting you through this like community. So I loved it, changed my life. And there's a lot of classes around here too. This one just happens to be in LA. And the guy that teaches it is from Fall River, Mass.
Okay.
Jerry Katzman. So he's still teaching that class, and there's like a wait list and everything. It's a pretty intensive course. It's like 10 weeks long, and each time you get together, you meet for about 4 hours with the group, and you are taught to care just as much about Teddy's material as Janelle's material, and it's kind of groomed and trained to be like a writer's room. So like you'll come up with an idea and you'll pitch it, and I'll say, I don't really quite get it, or try this or this, and so it really feels collaborative, which so much of stand-up can be like lone wolf, writing alone, showing up alone, on stage alone. This was the first time I said, I could actually go at it like as a team sport almost. And that's, I think, what helped me feel like I could do it.
Can you teach someone to be funny though? Creativity and humor, that's something you kind of have to be born with a level of that, or
totally
have developed it through life experiences, right?
I agree with that for sure. But there are tips and tricks to get people to not be so like blocked. A lot of people are like standing in their own way or don't realize the ways at which they're funny. And so with enough support and training and like the structure of how to write, like premise, set up, punch, tag, misdirect, like teaching the 101 tools, like stand up for dummies, you can probably get someone super dry that you don't think is funny, that has a desire and has like drive to actually put together a funny set. Because even if they're like not the typical life of the party, maybe they're very deadpan but have super observational ideas, and then they're just been afraid, they just need that hand holding. So I do wish that like everyone was forced to take a class, because it really is very empowering, especially as like young women. We talked about this too the other day, is like there's different a set of standards for men and women, and so it's nice to kind of like break that stereotype and kind of force yourself to kind of form your own thoughts and opinions. So I really wish like everyone had to take a class, because I think that it would help them just in life in general.
It's a difficult thing to do, though, right? It looks, when somebody's funny, you see all the greats, right, throughout history, and it looks effortless, and you think, I can do that. And then it's hard because you're up there alone. There's nowhere to hide. You're not like a singer with a backup band that can help cover you or digitize your voice or whatever.
Totally.
When you're not funny, the audience lets you know pretty quickly. Do you ever have like one of those nights?
Oh my God.
No matter what you tried, nobody.
I've had so many of those nights. Oh yeah, you have
and you
to.
kept going back?
It's a drug. It's I like want to take this moment to apologize to so many of my friends that have come to those shows starting out, like, especially when I was starting out. I've been at this for now since 2012, so I'm at almost 12 years. So you can't have had a career in it without having countless bombs, we call them, So the bombs, I've had so many bombs, but that's just part of it. Now, very thankfully, because I've figured it out and I've stuck with it and I'm skilled, and you get your reps and you get 10,000 hours in, I don't have nights where I have certain bits that bomb, but I don't have nights where I bomb, because I just wouldn't let that happen as a professional. But certainly, like, up until, I don't know, a few years ago, or more than a few years ago, I've had sets sometimes it's just a mix of just the audience not digging what you're putting out, or maybe someone didn't do so well before you and they're already in a disgruntled mood, or you're trying something that is just not developed yet, but you really have the I'm gonna make it work, and you're like, it's not working, but you're like in the middle of it, so you got to finish it. So it really can be a very humbling it's a humbling job.
so it's work, though. It's not like everybody thinks it's glamorous. You just roll out of bed, go about your day, and then hop on a stage at 9, 10 o'clock at night and make people laugh. But you have to hone that routine. You have to hone the skill, and it sounds like you're constantly working to develop it as well, right?
Totally. It is a tireless, nonstop job where you're, thinking, oh, I made this person laugh in conversation, I got to write that down later. Or how did I say it? Or, constantly working on social media is huge now. Promoting is big, writing the actual jokes and then practicing and, getting so comfortable with the material that it feels like second nature. I mean, Jay Leno talks about he can split his brain. Like he can do, it's really fascinating. Like he's been doing it for so long, like as long as I've been, 3+ decades, right? I love his success story because he moved from Andover, lived in his car, like came from nothing essentially, and just stuck it out. He called it like a waiting, like inline waiting. And the more people would quit or drop out, he's one step closer, one step closer. And so he got to the point, and now when he does his set, his act, he can be counting the chairs while like he splits his brain in half. Half of his brain is counting the chairs, all the chairs. The other half is just saying the set, saying his act. So he has gotten to the point where I guess I forget what it's called. It's like, I keep going like this because it's like a compartmentalization of like, it's, and I can do that too now. Like I can be saying, I'm so familiar with some of my jokes and my act, I could be saying it while also going in my brain, okay, I'm saying this and getting laughs and knowing where to pause. And now I'm like, okay, what's next? Do I want to do that bit next? Do I want to throw in a new bit? So it's really a ton about memorization and being so comfortable with that material, just constantly getting your reps and getting out multiple times a night, every night, so that it's like the back of your hand, what you're saying. And that way you can kind of really work on the delivery or the facial expressions or the connection or putting in new stuff, padding the new stuff between stuff that works. So if it doesn't go well, you have a big guaranteed laugh. So there's all these little tricks and trades that it's not as glamorous as it seems. And even the greats, you see them, they make it sound like they just came up with this idea. They've been honing it and practicing it for maybe a year or two straight if you're watching their Netflix special. So, and they have a little, you don't see it, but they definitely have a little list of like what their chunks are so that they know that maybe they'll go to their drink and it's like on the cocktail napkin. Maybe they'll put it on the other side of the water bottle and they'll look through. It's,
ooh, you're giving away the tricks of the trade. Yeah. Magicians get canceled for that.
I know. This is how much I care about InsideLowell. I get in. I want you to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah. So that's fascinating. Are there ever times where you're either just you've had such a bad night, or you're tired of it, or the traveling gets to you, and you say, you know what? Screw it. I'd rather just wait tables or bag groceries at Market Basket or something. Have you gotten to that point?
Totally. I've definitely I've romanticized. Yeah, I go and get, a nice coffee and I'm like, oh, that barista looks like they're having a nice little life. Or, I'm just like, I could just have a cozy, comfortable, go back to my corporate day job. But I've sold my blood for it now. I definitely feel like I'm never giving up. I think I'll be, 100 and like, get me up on that stage. Like that would be like my dying wish, like roast me at my funeral. Like I definitely feel at this point, it is my life. It's my life's work. It's what keeps me really happy. So as much as it drives me insane, the pros outweigh the cons, and I'm in it. So
I can promise you, as bad as it is, the waiting tables and being a barista, it's not going to be more glamorous. So
that's what
enjoyable.
We sort of talked about that earlier, right? It's like we look at someone else's life. Oh, that looks so nice, and they're like, I'd rather be getting up on stage. So it's definitely. I've been feeling burnt out lately, and that's when I shift gears to developing a TV show with my sister, and so that's been a lot of fun and doing a lot of like long form scripted writing, and so I just try to like take breaks if I'm burnt out on touring and traveling. Maybe I'll hang back a little bit and do more local stuff and focus on my show and social media and more like writing than hitting the road so much. So I just try to like go ebbs and flows,
Keeping it fresh.
Yeah.
We're chatting with Janelle Draper, Chelmsford High class of 2007 graduate. We just outed your age. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Downtown Lowell resident, but she's traveling the country, working her way up the stand-up comedy ladder. And dare I say, you're getting very close to the top rung if you're not at least holding on to it and trying to get your legs up there.
But life.
Your style, I read in a recent interview, actually from late in 2023, your style was described as, quote, uncensored, unladylike, unapologetic, uncouth, and uncircumcised. So I started following you after we did our interview in 2022, and your Instagram stuff is great. It's my wife was like, "What are you laughing at?" I'm like, "It's that local comedian I was telling you about." But it's like, it's raunchy. It's like
raunchy.
You go to places where not a lot of women like to go with comedy, and that's what I find like really like funny.
So
did it ever get you in trouble? Does like your dad or your sisters or your mom, who are often the brunt of your jokes or a part of it, do they ever say, "Janelle, do you have to talk about our family like that?"
Absolutely. My dad for a while and my mom were like, "Why don't you be more like Bill Cosby?" And I'm like, all right, look what happened there. Well, that's actually a good way to describe it, right? Bill Cosby was like super like clean and, you know, got mad at comedians being dirty, and then look what he's doing in real life. I'm like the opposite, where I'm really filthy, but then in real life, like I'm pretty sweet. I'm pretty normal. I have a monogamous relationship. I'm not like, you know, I'm actually, it's definitely an act I put on. I mean, I am definitely like, I love to be like a party gal. I like to, you know, have fun, and I do feel a lot of the things I say, but, you know, I exaggerate and embellish a lot of that for the joke. So I've always had a darker, dirtier sense of humor, and I definitely get it from my dad. And so he's like, at first he'd be like, "Yeah, it's hard to hear," but then, you know, he'll say, "Oh, I missed that joke you did about me there." I'm like, "Oh, so now you want me to talk about you? Like what?" So, you know, and then my mom's definitely more reserved and a little bit more like, "Couldn't you just talk about like airplane food?" I'm like, "I could, but it's not really what makes me excited. Like I want to get deep and I want to talk about, you know, things that people, I don't know. It's something I've just always enjoyed, and it has definitely got me. It's definitely gotten me into some awkward conversations with family members, and that's been a whole learning curve of trying to kind of be like, I don't give a shit, you know, because it's like Kobe Bryant. Like this is a really kind of grandiose metaphor, but it's like Kobe Bryant trying to play. Oh, sorry, bad example. R.I.P.
Just Kobe Bryant, Bill Cosby. Boy, you're.
Yikes. Teddy's like, you gotta get some better references, Janelle. What is going on?
I love him. I'm the king of inappropriate.
Really? So. Okay, so maybe it's like just any good, what is it, Michael Jordan, any great basketball player playing with one arm behind his back. So if I let my family's opinion of me or other people's opinion of me hold me back from what I truly like, lit me up on stage, I wouldn't be performing to my most truest, authentic self, and I would be doing everyone a disservice. So I try to like not let people get to me. It definitely does still get to me, but I really try to like build the Teflon, like I don't care, because if I cared what people thought, like I couldn't be doing this at all. Or if I go, "Oh, is that offensive to you?" Like I'm not doing it for those people. So like as much as it's, you know, tough to have my grandparents sit in the front row and I go, "I'm not gonna be dirty, I'm not gonna be dirty," and then like a dirty joke slips out and I'm like, ah! I go, you know what? They still love me. They can understand it's an act. Like it's same way that Amy Schumer or Nikki Glaser or like you have creative license with artists who do music. Like, you know, I'm not that person who's walking around like it's exaggerated for sure. So it's definitely been tricky to navigate around family, but I just try to build a like I don't know if I can say it, you know, swear.
You can swear on this. It's the internet.
Okay, cool.
Radio, so say whatever you want.
It's like I try to build like I don't give a fuck mentality. You know, I try to build that. And the more I build that, the longer I've been in it and the older I get, the more that is easier for me to do. And the more I build that, the better I can be, you know? Because if I'm worried, does my mom approve of this? Does my grandparents like this? That's not me doing stand-up comedy. Because my target demo is not my mom or my grandparents, you know? It's whoever's coming and buying tickets to come see me. Those aren't my grandparents. Like, I love them to death, but they're not out consuming comedy. They're not buying tickets and coming to shows. They're not on social media. So like, it's definitely made me like worried, but I try to go like, I just can't care.
Listen, one of the questions I had was, you know, where is the industry going, and are you concerned? And you don't do a lot of political humor.
I
because
don't
a
at
lot
all,
of people
really.
can't laugh at it. You're more, you know,
like I try to make myself the butt of the joke. Yeah, like I just talk about things I have experience in, but yeah, I don't really get into like racial stuff or political stuff just because I don't want to divide the audience, and I don't have a ton of desire in politics. I mean, now I do. Now I feel like I definitely am like, I need to show up at the table and, you know, vote for Kamala, obviously for me, because I like, my biggest thing I do care about is like women's right, like a woman's right to choose and like own her own body, not the government. So that's when you'll see it coming up in my comedy, but I don't really get into other stuff. Like I could care less about joking about Trump. Like I just don't, it's all been done already. You know, it's been, I think we're all a little sick of like pandemic jokes, political jokes, like, and like, what am I, you know, I it's like tough to make those jokes because, you know, I'm a white straight girl. So like, what am I going to say about, you know, it's like, I don't have the experience of like a queer black girl or someone that's lived those experiences. So I'm not going to try to go to those territories because maybe it's not as fair for me to try to be covering things that I don't have an experience doing. So I just try to stay in my own lane, and that will be like, I mean, I've literally like booked managers. They've seen me and been like, I like the juxtaposition of like the smiley girl next door with the like filthy like sense of humor. So I think that's sort of my thing, and I wonder when I'll outgrow it, if I'll ever outgrow it. And that's sort of like, I'm doubling down on that. It is a little bit harder though to get, like when I do corporate gigs or trying to do like a TV set, it has to be clean. So I can be clean, I just don't prefer it.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, I could see the affection you have for Jay Leno when you spoke about him. You worked closely with him. Is he your favorite person that you've ever worked with in the field, or is there somebody else that kind of stands out?
Great question. He's probably one of my favorite. I just think his whole story is so inspiring, coming from no one handed him anything. And he's just a really admirable person to work for, because I saw, you know, very closely firsthand that he was very generous to all his employees, and just his work ethic was super inspiring, how he'd show up every day and in his like Canadian tux, all denim on denim, and run his lines. And then it's just a real love for the process, which I think in such an outcome-oriented industry of like, how many followers do you have, and have you sold out, and, you know, have you broken through yet? I like to see that he still loves the process of like writing jokes and showing up and putting in his time, and even just such a workaholic, which I can relate to. You know, he never touched his Tonight Show money. So even when he was making so much money from being the host of the Tonight Show for all those years, he would still be on the road, going to do his residency in Vegas, going to fly to other gigs, and just really having this drive that's almost like an insatiable drive, probably a little bit lunatic, delusional drive too. But I think it's kind of cool to see someone from Massachusetts make a name for themselves and not give up the love on the grind a little bit. And just the fact he was very like generous with his team and staff. And so, yeah, I have a sore spot, for him, I suppose. Soft spot, not sore spot.
I'm getting to the sore spot. Is there someone who is just a complete
jerk?
Like, yeah. I don't care how much they pay me, I will never share a stage with that person.
Yeah. Ah, gosh. That you do meet a lot of big egos in this industry, and I'm just like, I try to stay out of all of it. Like, I was, you know, I did work with someone who was on the show Entourage, and as a cast member, I won't say the name, but they
now anyone who watches this is going to try to
they'll find it. Yeah, there's not too many on Entourage that also do stand up, but he wasn't too nice. He was fine. He was kind of like a little arrogant, a little jerky, just kind of like, I feel like bad mouthing other comics in the green room, which I think is not cool to do. Mm-hmm. So I don't really enjoy that. I feel like I'm not at the career where I could say like, I won't ever work with that person unless they like really crossed a line to someone I know or have been canceled. But I'm at that point where like, I can work with pretty much any personality. Doesn't matter how much of a jerk they are, because I'll just make sure that I stay out of it, and I'll just be very professional and get the job done, you know. And that's the thing that, you know, in LA you are paired. Like if I go do a show at the Improv or the Comedy Store, I don't know who else is on the lineup, and if I could just say, hey, nice to meet you, and then move on, right? Yeah. So it's like, I don't need to be friends with everyone, and that's okay. I prefer to be friends with as many people as I can, but some comics are just very like, they come off as one way on stage, and they're very, socially awkward or introverted or dark or like no interest in getting to know you. So I definitely built a thick skin for that, having like worked in Hollywood and all that. Because even before I did stand up, I was working at NBC and then working at a music PR firm with like people like Lenny Kravitz. We represented, and Adam Levine, Alanis Morissette, 𝒐𝒐𝒏𝒕, who's that one-hit wonder. Remember him? And
yeah, what's he doing? But
I don't know, because this is a long time ago.
Is that where you got the vision of your brother's roommate like laying on the bed with the roses on from the 𝒐𝒐𝒏𝒕 video?
Probably, literally, probably. My brain just goes to crazy places. So yeah, that. We talked about that in the last episode.
The one that I didn't hit the record.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. It's okay. That's probably for the best. But I just I feel like I'm giving you long-winded answers. Sorry about that.
No,
but okay.
That's okay. We're learning about you. We're introducing you to the folks who don't know about you yet. So the last thing I want to hit on is you kind of touched on this. You're writing a series. Your goal is to actually launch your own comedy series, I imagine, along the likes of Ellen DeGeneres or Jerry Seinfeld or Amy Schumer.
Exactly.
So what would the Janelle Draper show be about? It can't be a show about nothing. That's been done.
Yeah, no.
Can't be about Parks and Recreation. That's been done.
I know, for sure. I mean, there was a thought my friend and I had too, which was, combining, kind of making like a mixtape of all those shows, like, parroting the certain golden days of NBC, like parroting like Friends and Dirty Rock and Parks and Rec. So, but that's a separate idea. But this idea I'm developing right now with my sister, it's very much based off of the live show we've done in New York. That show was called Twisted Sisters. And my sister's a midwife nurse practitioner who studied and then was a faculty member at Yale. And so we would join together, and we did this really cool live show that was almost, people had called it similar to like Loveline with like Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew, where like Adam Carolla is like the crazy zany comedian who says all the crazy shit. And then Dr. Drew was like the clinical doctor my sister and I developed this show that actually ended up selling out every month. And we took a hiatus because she just had a baby. And, but we would take like anonymous questions from the audience, like a fishbowl, and we'd answer them on the spot. And like the audience would be waiting for their answers, and it'd be anything ranging from like, how do I know if I have chlamydia to am I infertile to how can I make this smell taste better, like crazy reproductive health questions, sexual health questions, and general health questions, and just like kinky health questions, sex questions. And we had a ton of fun. Like she'd give the real dry answer, but that would almost elicit a laugh every time because she wasn't even trying to be funny, and she was. Then I would give these crazy outside the lines like anecdotes about this time I raw dogged or whatever. It's just like we would mix our styles, very yin and yang, and we had a little following. And then we were like, okay, we should make this a scripted live show where two sisters go on the road, kind of like the Breaking Bad for female, and instead of illegal meth, maybe abortions. Like there's sort of like it's a story takes place after Roe versus Wade was overturned. So there is a political side, there is a reproductive health, reproductive rights side to it, but it is like inspired off of two sisters but I don't want to say too much, but that's sort of where we're going. It'd be a story about sisterhood, about repro rights, about, midwifery on the road working, and I'll keep it there. So we're talking to some people in LA and Hollywood, which is really exciting, some writers, some producers, and we've just finished our script. So.
All right. It sounds like you have a lot in the works, but you're going to keep touring, right?
Yeah. So that's like how it's just like Amy Schumer, like touring while having a show. And that's the pie in the sky dream. So let's manifest that here on Inside Lowell. Let's make it happen.
You never know. Folks who want to know more about you, want to follow your career, see your schedule, where you're performing, especially if you're going to be local and whatnot, or if they just want to laugh for a minute 30-second with your Instagram videos, like I do. How do they follow you?
Find me on Instagram at Janelle Jokes, JANELLE Jokes, JOKES. at Janelle Jokes on Instagram, and that's TikTok as well, and Twitter. And then also on Facebook, Janelle Draper. Yeah, please follow me there. I always post about my upcoming local shows, and if you're ever in other parts of the country, constantly touring there. So that's where the latest and greatest is. Or you can go to my website, janelledraper.com.
Love it. Janelle Draper, thank you so much for coming here in the Well Point Studios.
Thank
and a great success story. Local girl makes it and going to make it even bigger. I have hope for you. Thank you so much for being here.
That was fun. Thank you.
This was
a blast.
Thank you as well for joining us here on this Inside Lowell podcast. I'm Teddy Panos. Till next time, stay safe, everybody.
Thank you so much.